Well, welcome back to Power to Change podcast, a production of Warriors Heart USA and, of course, Power to Change LLC, where we get together every week to explore the series on Sometimes You Win and Sometimes You Learn. I'm Bob Bauer, and I'm your host. I'm not going to recap last week's subject because I really want to jump right into this week. I love this subject on hope. Hope is and was the gas that got me going. A story that I often tell is about a man in a hole. He felt himself slipping into a hole for some time, an emotional hole, but he was so full of pride he would not reach out for help. One morning he woke up, found himself at the bottom of that hole. He realized he was in trouble and he needed to get help. He panicked and he began to scream for help. Help me, somebody, please help me. He heard a voice responding, how can I help you? Well, the man in the hole explained that he was stuck and he didn't know how to get out of the hole. He told them of his nightmares, his night sweats, his anxiety, his constant anger. He spoke of constantly fighting with his wife, his children, and his coworkers, as well as his boss. He said if he didn't get help, he would lose everything. So please help me. The man listened intently, and in response, he offered the man in the hole a bucket and a shovel and this advice. Young man, you're young and you're strong. You are well skilled and trained. So use these tools to get yourself out of the hole. And with that, he left. The young man began to dig and dig until he was exhausted. He soon realized that he was not making any headway. He was going deeper into the hole. So he sat on his bucket with the shovel across his lap, feeling abandoned and lost. He sat in his hole, not knowing what his next step would be. Soon he heard another set of voices, but these sounded familiar. It was his family and friends. And he began to holler, help me, somebody help me. And someone walked over and saw that it was family. And they asked him how they could help. So the man in the hole explained to them his story and his crisis. And he pleaded for their help. They stood there for a moment, looking at each other. And then they told him they did not know how to help him and felt that they should not even try because they could make things worse. So they walked away. He felt rejected by those that meant the most to him. He sat on his bucket at the bottom of the hole, listening to the lies of his pain, watching his world spin out of control. He dropped his head in despair. As he sat there contemplating how to end his pain, he heard another set of voices. Now with less energy, he called for help. It was almost like a murmur. Help me, please, somebody, help me. And then a voice came over and replied, how can I help you? The man shared his story and his crisis with this person. Then the person identified themselves as being part of the medical group, stating that they can't make any promises, but they will evaluate his situation and they'll get back to him. Well, when they returned, they told him they couldn't fix his trauma, but they could help him live with it. So they gave him a prescription with an endless supply of meds, and then they walked away. Now the man began to take this prescription, and soon he lost his passion, his energy. He lost everything. Now he had no desire to go forward. He just wanted to begin to plan on how to end his pain. As he sat there, he heard someone whistling. Now this angered him as he was in the worst mood ever and could not stand somebody being happy. Soon he heard a voice. Hey there, young fella, how you doing? This angered him, and he unloaded on the voice. He told them how miserable he was and how no one wanted to help him out of that hole. So he had just decided to end his pain today. And then he dropped his head in despair. Soon he heard a thump. It startled him. He looked up and he was face to face with the voice, an old man with leathery skin. The man in the hole became angry and began to curse the old man. "You old fool. Now we're both stuck in the hole." With a twinkle in his eye and a smile on his face and a tear trickling down his cheek, he said, "Young man, I've been in this hole before. I know the way out. Follow me." Now the old man in the hole had lost all hope, and the old man brought it with him. For you see, without hope, there cannot be a future. Losses in life are never fun, but there is one loss no one can afford to experience, and that is the loss of hope. That's a quote from John Maxwell. You see, hope is a beautiful thing. To me, hope is a bridge that spans over our troubled waters. It connects our scars to make a highway that will lead us to healing and restoration. So what does hope do for mankind? See, hope shines the brightest when the hour is the darkest. Hope motivates when discouragement comes. Hope energizes when the body is tired. Hope sweetens when bitterness bites. Hope sings when all melodies are gone. Hope brings the victory when no one is winning. Hope is inspiring. It gives us the motivation for living. Hope says yes to life. Now, Paul Tillich was an author of the book called The Courage to Be. Prior to his death, he was asked about real courage. Paul said yes to life despite all the hardships and pain, which is part of the human experience. It takes courage to find something meaningful about ourselves and life every day. Living life and loving life is probably the highest form of courage. It's like the story of the man in the hole. He lost all hope. He listened to all the lies of his pain, which was robbing him of hope. But when the older man jumped in that hole, telling the guy he had been there himself and he knew the way out, he brought with him hope. A reason to love life again, a reason to live life. Now, let's be honest. We are going to face conflict. In fact, the problem-solving columnist Ann Landers once said, we can expect conflict in our lives. It's inevitable. But when we face it and you hold your head up high and you look it squarely in the eye and you tell it, you can't defeat me. You see, hope fills us with energy. It's been said that the man can live 40 days without food. Even man can live 4 days without water. Man can live 4 minutes without air. However, man cannot survive longer than 4 seconds without hope. Why? Hope gives us the energy to push forward. It's a powerful thing. It gives us strength and courage. It gives us the reason to live because hope focuses forward. There's a reason that the rearview mirrors in our cars are small and the windshields are large. We are to focus on where we are going, not where we have been. I heard a story about an old man once that looked very worried. To those who were looking at him, he seemed like he was downtrodden, downhearted. So someone asked him, "What are you worried about?" The old man said he was worried about his future. Why? Why would you be worried about your future? His response was, because of my past. Oddly enough, that is kind of what all of us identify with. We spend a lot of time living in the past, but hope brings us forward. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, finish each day and be done with it. Because hope is a future. It leans forward with expectation. Hope is a difference maker. Hope is our greatest asset and our greatest weapon that we can use when the battle is when our losses seem to be mounting up. Hope is powerful, and that is why it's a difference maker, because hope looks for lessons in defeat instead of just leaving you feel defeated. Hope discovers what can be done instead of what can't be done. Hope regards problems, small or little, as opportunities. Hope lights a candle instead of cursing the darkness. With hope, failure is a skipping stone. Without hope, failure is a tombstone. I encourage you to embrace hope by striving to make each day better than the day before. Learn from your losses. Don't let them defeat you. My dad used to say, failure is not terminal, but quitting is. Hope keeps you alive. So the big question is, how do we cultivate hope? Well, first you got to realize that hope is a choice. I read this story about a man, 87 years old, who lived in Florida. He found out that he had terminal prostate cancer. He wasn't saddened or discouraged at all by the news. One weekend, his great-grandson was spending Saturday morning with him. And they sat around the breakfast table and they were talking about things they could do that day. And they were talking about planting in the old man's backyard. And so the kid said, Grandpa, what do you want to plant? Grandpa responded, I want to plant an orange tree. Grandpa, that tree takes 5 years before it produces any fruit on it. And well, you might not be here. His grandson replied, that's true, but you'll be here. Grandpa chose hope that day. Likelihood he won't be there in 5 years. Likelihood he could be. Either way, his grandson would be there in order to bear the harvest of Grandpa's hope. You see, hope is in the DNA of folks who learn from their losses. When the tough times come, they choose hope. It will motivate them to learn from the challenge. They refuse to be victims. But you got to change your thinking, your mindset. The main trouble with despair is that it's self-fulfilling. I had a friend who always saw life through lenses of pain. He always expected the worst to happen, and his expectations never let him down. His mindset was set on failure, negativity, and pain. I had to learn that life has its challenges, but in order to overcome those challenges, I had to learn from them. I had to change my own mindset. When I went through emergency vehicle operations training, it's called EVOC. I did it as a cop. They taught us how to drive in critical situations. But anyhow, I was taught how to handle a skidding car. When the car is out of control, I was told that I should look to where I want the car to go when steering, not where the car wants to go. This would set my mind to learn from the skid constantly. Life's like that. When faced with the challenge, when your life seems to be skidding and out of control, look to where you want to go, not where you seem to be heading. Change the way you think. Go back to that guy in the hole. He gave up. He lost hope and saw everything negatively. Each time he reached out, he was shut down. He did not choose hope. He chose defeat and was ready to end his life. But hope jumped in the hole with him, showed him the possibilities. You see, we have to win some small victories first. There's an old saying that goes something like this: positive thinking must be followed by positive doing. Building a house requires you to do it in stages. You start small to build to the more extensive project. You have to have a foundation, and in this case, it's positive thinking followed by positive action. Let me share this with you. When people see victory, they sacrifice to succeed. They look for ways to win. They begin energized. They become energized. They follow the game plan and they help others. However, on the flip side, if they sense defeat, they give up, or they give as little as possible. They make little investment. They have no energy, no effort. They look for excuses. They become tired. They forsake the game plan and they hurt others. So winning, small victories can change your outlook on life. The power of hope. Let me share with you a story about a Major League Baseball player, now retired, Jim Abbott. You might know the story about him, and if you do, please just kind of like hang out a little bit while I tell it. But this is a powerful story of the power of hope. Now, I'm sure you would all agree that when we are expecting the birth of our children, we're excited and we've got great expectations for them. We invest a lot of hope. Now, Mike and Kathy Abbott, the parents of young Jim, were excited on Jim's pending arrival. But yet, when he was born, they were shocked when they learned he was born without a right hand. You know, Jim grew up like every other kid. He just was missing a right hand. He did what everybody else did. His so-called handicap did not dissuade him from being active. Now, when he was younger, the so-called experts advised his parents that he should go to this hospital, get a hook on his hand, and learn how to use it. He was around a lot of other kids who were dealing with their disabilities. But there was a moment when they realized this wasn't going to work for Jim. So they took him home and they treated him like everybody else's kid. Now, Jim had two passions. One, he loved sports. And he loved his athletic ability. Now, when he was 6, his dad bought him a baseball glove. He learned how to use it. He would spend hours throwing a rubber ball against a brick wall. And as he was doing that, he was learning how to get his right arm to put on his glove on his left hand so he could field a ball. Small victories were paying off. He played in all the sports throughout school, and he realized that his disability was forever, so he had to learn to overcome it. He excelled in high school, especially with baseball. He took his team to the conference championship, and as a result of his abilities, his athletic abilities, he was drafted by the then Toronto Blue Jays. But Jim had his heart on playing college ball, especially for the University of Michigan, which he did for 3 years. He was an All-American, winning 2 Big Ten championships, playing on the Olympics baseball team, and pitched in the 1988 Summer Olympics in South Korea to win the gold medal. He made the major league pitching roster on opening day, his first year in the majors. His hope pays back. Now, Jim played in the major leagues for 10 years. He had some good years and he had some bad years. But Jim will tell you the most fantastic outcome that surprised him was the attention he was drawing from kids who had disabilities. You see, he was the hope for them who had been told no or treated differently from everybody else. He gave those kids hope because he grew up with hope. His parents saw the potential to live everyday life and capitalized on his talents. He lived on hope. I'm a big advocate of hope. Remember the story of the man in the hole, the guy who lost hope and was ready to give up his life? Well, that story is true to some degree because I was that guy in the hole. I was too proud to ask for help and found myself in that hole for a very long time. People did not know how to help me. Some faked it, others just ran in the opposite direction. And yes, the medical field came in and gave me medication that was supposed to keep me in denial. The difference between me and that man in the hole, I did try to end my life. But a man who had been where I was before stepped in that hole with me to help me. He helped me out of the hole. He showed me the path that led to the bridge of hope. It connected the scars of others to that bridge that stood above the troubled waters. I often say it's hard to remember the reason we jumped into the pool was to drain it when the alligators are nipping at our heels. So today, take the time to purge the negativity from your mind. Reprogram it with hope. And tomorrow morning, start your day of gratitude off with hope. This is Power to Change, and I'm Bob Bauer.